Thanks for having me. Before I get started, can everyone look at who you're sitting next to? Turn your head and look at who you're sitting next to. Okay, great. Now that the focus is of me, I can get started. So I wanted to give you a little bit of context for who I am before I get going. I'm a German-Canadian. I grew up in Lengries, which is not so far from here. And I'm currently living in Berlin after a long stint in New York. Career-wise, I'm a product designer, and I've spent a lot of my career working a lot across a lot of different industries, whether that's hospitality or finance, education, government. But I want to focus on the right-hand side of this quadrant. This side because this is where I've spent the majority of my career. And this is where I think I can bring my experience into this exhibition and maybe create some relevance. So I did a lot of experience design for BBC, the entire NBC family, National Geographic, and around the storytelling. And when I say storytelling here, what I mean is the tools that allow you to express opinion, and create emotion, right? So it's designing the customer experience. What does that look like? What does that feel like? How expressive can you be? But actually, more critically, a lot of my work has focused on the product systems, the back-end work that sits behind all of that. Because in the end, it doesn't really matter if you have a really nice box to put content in. If you don't have an organization or you don't have people that can fill that box on a regular basis and consistently, it doesn't really matter. You're going to fall short of delivering on your customer. So I want to sort of connect this thread today. And so to do that, I think I'm going to keep it quite simple and just talk you through the what, who, how, and where of storytelling from my perspective. And I just want to say before we go any deeper that I am not a marketer. I'm a product designer. But when you spend a lot of time in the space and you spend a lot of time sort of crafting the experiences that define a brand, you end up adopting a lot of the same terminology. So for some of you who are maybe familiar with some of these topics, my apologies if I butcher these concepts, but I sincerely hope you're going to get something interesting out of this, and in the very least, maybe see some pretty pictures and hear some fun anecdotes. Okay, so reflections. What is your brand story? I want you to keep this image in mind, and if you haven't already, check out the reflections booth right behind us after this talk. So there's a very buzzy term in brand marketing. It's brand universes, and there's a lot of definitions like this one up here, and they all really boil down to this synchronization of touch points, right? That's the simplest way. But to really get real with what that means, it's actually when the internal elements of your brand, like your images, your values, your codes, meet the outside world. That's what we're talking about, whether that's through storytelling, through entertainment, through collaborations. And I think a very resonant quote that kind of captures this really well is from the former CEO of Patagonia, Krishna Nikhil, who said that creating a modern brand universe is about finding something that is uniquely yours, finding your point of view for your community, and then do it relentlessly and repeatedly with the broadest surface area possible. Okay, I want to show you what that looks like. Nike sneakers feed, okay? As a product designer, this is a great page. I love this page. It's totally uncluttered. There's no pricing. Love that. And it heroes the product. So that's great. But there's also something unusual, right? There's a man on the stoop holding a saxophone. And if you click on it, it launches this video. Beautiful, right? It's nice. But why is there a video of sort of a Bed-Stuy tapestry on this page? And how is it that a sneaker is, by all definition, now a luxury item? That sneaker to the right, the Air Jordan 4, which was just re-released, retails for $215 US if you can get it, which you can't because it's scarce. And it resells for $315 to $615 on secondary markets, depending on your size. And so the question is, like, how is that? How did we get here? And I think to understand that, you have to understand the cultural context in which this product sits. So this product was released in 1989. And that year, it was also iconically captured in this Sports Illustrated edition when Michael Jordan, in a last-ditch heroic effort, bested the Cavaliers, I believe, in the NBA playoffs. And they didn't go on to win the championship, but the Nike Air 4 became one of the best-selling sneakers of all time. The other thing that happened around this time was Do the Right Thing came out, a Spike Lee cult classic set in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy. And for those of you who have seen it or those who know, this movie really sort of really captured the obsession of a generation with sneakers. And so if you're Nike and you're re-releasing this classic shoe that has a story history for your brand, what do? Well, you commission Satchel Lee, the daughter of Spike Lee, to do that video. And you reimagine the sneaker and the scenes that made it famous from Do the Right Thing in a modern context. And to me, that's really artful storytelling. And it's not a one-off. Like, if you scroll through this page, you can tell it's part of Nike's DNA. They're storytellers. They're not just selling product. And that's what, in the end, makes their product a luxury item. And so the first takeaway I think I want to leave you with is when crafting your brand story, there's an emotional design philosophy that has sort of three tenets. It's visceral, behavioral, and reflective design. And the reflective is really about what does the customer, the consumer, take away with the product? What's the story they carry with them after they've purchased it? And I think this is particularly relevant for the jewelry space. OK, so we've established the what. Now we're going to talk about the who. So I do a lot of work with Highsnobiety. Some of you might know them. They're a publisher and thought leader, retailer in the new luxury space. And one of a recent report that they did on new luxury, I think, highlights this idea that your brand story is actually one, if you want to cut through in this very, very busy media landscape, one that you need to allow others to tell on your behalf. So quite recently, it was Paris Fashion Week. And I want to ask you, what do you think was the most talked about product at that event? OK, so it's a rhetorical question, obviously. But yeah, it was a product, a family-owned business that makes workwear boots based out of Stratham, New Hampshire, family-owned. And it's this guy right here, this yellow boot. The most talked about item at a couture fashion event. And why is that? Because it featured in Pharrell's Louis Vuitton collection. And what the brand did is allow Pharrell to reinterpret their brand codes and introduce those aesthetics, those attention to craft, to an entirely new audience. In my own experience, I work, like Laurent mentioned, for Zalando, so biggest fashion and beauty retailer in Europe. And there's probably not a lot of overlaps to your lives here, but I do think there's an interesting intersection between fashion and jewelry, which is that it plays a role in culture. I think that the previous talk also touched on that, and the voices that sort of deliver those messages. And so we built this platform, we call it Stories, and where before we were a very transactional environment, you can now sort of consume stories. And we leverage the voices of others to contextualize the products in the culture that they sit. And this is, I think, super important for us as a brand, because as a marketplace, we have the same challenge as any brand, which is how do you go from a purely transactional relationship with your customer that's fleeting to a lasting one. And so you want to make those impressions. And for us, you have this experience that doesn't look like a traditional commerce experience where you've got a story feed, you've got a social first sort of consumption mode, and you can really dive in and shop the products that are being put forward by other voices than our own. And in that way, we've created a framework that gives our brand a voice. Who we curate, who shows up on our platform says a lot about who we are and what our values are. And so I want to talk about that bit. It's not about the intersection of content and commerce, but that you have to create a system that allows you to connect with a consumer in this way. And that's what we have done at Zalando. And I want to leave you with this thought that I think the limiting function of building your brand is always going to be the systems and the workflows that underpin the experience you create. So if you can't do that at scale, if you can't do it repeatedly, if you can't do it consistently, you will limit your growth. And it doesn't matter if you're small or big. These are principles that apply regardless. OK, so hope you're still with me. We talked about the what, the who, and now the how. I think to really understand the how, we have to reimagine or recontextualize the consumer. What drives them? What motivates them? What context do they sit in? And the way I think it's helpful to do that in is to frame the customer not as someone, a reflection of what's in their basket, but rather of the cultural context that drives them. And if you think about like what is culture, it's literally everything. It's watching a Netflix show or series. It's going to a product launch party. It's going on holidays. It's living it up at a trade show. And we're increasingly sort of defined by the platforms and the mediums that are delivering these experiences to us. And that translates also into what we bring into the commerce journey. And this is particularly relevant because by 2030, 70% of Europe will be Gen Z or millennial, right? So that's a staggering stat. What's more, some recent research by High Society shows that even Gen X, I'm sort of on the cusp, I'm like a geriatric millennial, but even Gen X is that we're adopting the same behaviors that are being introduced by Gen Z. And it's not that we're getting physically younger, I'm certainly not, but we are adopting these new behaviors, these new consumption modes that are shaping the way we discover brands and connect with brands. And it's not just about awareness, right? So, I mean, the stat on the right here, when surveyed, this customer segment, the Gen Z segment, says they like seeing niche cultural references in branded content and entertainment, but it's actually also about the commerce journey. So 50% of their time is spent either getting inspired or inspiring others, and not related to direct purchase activities. 70% of them make purchasing decisions while seeking inspiration. So if you look ahead, you kind of need to realize that you need to work in this space and understand where your customer is discovering your brand. Not everybody is a cultural consumer in the same way. So I think it's helpful to look at this distribution. I think if I asked everyone to raise their hands, like who would define themselves as a pioneer or who is a laggard, probably not very few arms would go up. But so when I sort of, this classification is one that we use, I think it's helpful. So the pioneers, this is, they sort of embody culture, they create it. Whereas the practitioners, we define them as the ones who live it. They're the ones who are really projecting those images out and amplifying them. The participants are buying it. These are people that care about culture in the sense that they want to be on trend, they want to be relevant, they want to know what's new, they're interested. So they'll buy into it. And the spectators are not going to buy into it, and that's fine, but they consume it. They consume culture, it's entertainment for them, but that's still equally important for you because it amplifies your brand. And we won't talk about the laggards. So when you think about the strategy, I think there was a question earlier about collaborations. I think it's really important to identify in your space who are the pioneers and who are the practitioners, and how can you co-create and curate with them, because ultimately that's your strategy to speak to and package your brand for the participants and the spectators. That's how you engage, and that's how you sell. So the takeaway, again, I just want you to walk away with is how we shop and the cues that we take from are rapidly changing. So to reach bigger audiences, you're not just selling, you're inspiring, and you're also entertaining. Okay, we are almost there. Wow, time's flying. Okay, so where do you place it? Okay, I hope I don't disappoint you here, because honestly, this is a really, really hard answer. I just talked to you about how important it is to be relevant in culture, that this is how this generation is discovering and consuming content. But I'm also here to tell you that it's also very fragmented. And brands that really want to cut through have to do a ton of different things. And so I don't have like a real good answer for you. So I'm going to do a little bit of a plot twist. So instead of imagining all of the surfaces that exist outside of your brand, outside of your walls, I'm going to ask you to be a little bit introspective and look in versus out. So I'm going to show you a product I designed for Cartier, and I want you to imagine, as soon as you see it, who is this for? Okay, if your instant reaction was, this is for a relatively small back office audience, kudos. I mean, I think that's probably not the first guess for most people. It looks like sort of a highly bespoke branded environment for Cartier clients, but it's actually for their sales staff. And we built this experience for the Cartier sales staff because they understood that the medium, how their brand is expressed at the sales floor level, where really their brand story meets the customer. The majority of their value is being generated on the sales floor. That the way they deliver those codes, the images, the history, the product context matters a lot. And you need the people who are delivering those stories to understand those design codes. And the salespeople at the end are storytellers. And so we built this tool to not only give them the information to insert those stories and contextualize them for their clients, but also to exchange with each other on what works. And like any good product design, you want to incorporate it into the way people are already working. So in this instance, Cartier has this ritual. They call them morning briefings. It's before the boutique opens. They all meet and they kind of discuss what's new and what is there to talk about, what's a priority, challenges, what have you. It's all boutique specific. And so we built a digital tool to allow the sales manager to basically curate the stories and the information that's most relevant to that boutique. And it's as easy as working in any interface, right? It's as easy as posting to social media. It's mobile first. I had another sort of privilege with Cartier to work on the redesign of their flagship maison in 13 Rue de la Paix in Paris. And again, it's five stories, this maison. And again, it was incredible, the attention to detail when it comes to creating a customer journey through the storied history of the brand. And the reason that really matters, especially for a brand as big as Cartier, especially when you're talking about 5 floors, is just the grandness and the depth of story needs to be curated, orchestrated, synchronized. So you can really start to think about this idea of brand universe being manifest here. But what if you're not Cartier? What if you're a small independent, right? Not everybody gets to be as big as Cartier. Like, do those things still matter? And I think they do. And this is just by pure chance that I'm showing you this brand, honestly. While I was doing research for this presentation and putting the material together, I happened to talk to an old colleague from New York, and he told me he had just got engaged. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And I immediately jumped into asking him about, well, why? What did you pick? What was your process? Why did you what was your, decision-making process for your engagement ring? I later on went to also congratulate him on getting engaged. And what was really fascinating to me when I heard his explanation was this relatively small boutique in Paris recreated for him an experience we designed for Cartier for their most exclusive premium customers, which is a tour through the boutique, a one-to-one with the gemologist to understand the philosophy and to understand what he was buying, a peek behind the curtain to talk to the craftsman, the artisan that was ultimately going to set the stone. And in this instance, a staff that didn't take themselves too seriously. And what Amantis gave my colleague was knowledge. They gave him context and story for why they do things the way they do. And they invited him in. And you can see here on their site, they're also inviting others in, and it's clear that what you get there is an experience. And so the last thought I want to leave you with is that the most important placement of your stories is on the premises that you own. It always starts from the center. So you need to, I think, ask yourself, what are the mechanisms that you have in place to invite the customer in and explore your craft and knowledge? All right, so just to recap. 4 themes. When crafting your brand story, consider the visceral, behavioral, and reflective elements of your product. And I think in jewelry, the reflective part is about the context and the story and the knowledge that sits behind it. The limiting function is going to be the systems that you have in place to allow you to meet the customer and build the experience. And so this is about enabling anyone that is customer-facing to deliver a consistent message. Our shopping behaviors are changing. It's just what's happening, and so we need, I think, anyone working with the brand needs to think about reaching a broader set of audience by embracing not just the selling, but also the entertaining and inspiring. And yeah, I think most importantly, it starts from within. So really pay attention to your own premise. I think that's it. Thank you.